Right now on Morning News Now, the race for the White House now a sprint to the finish, with both candidates focused on those undecided voters. Former President Donald Trump making a detour from his battleground blitz for a rally at New York's famed Madison Square Garden, a rally now making headlines.
Next Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala Harris that you've done a terrible job. Kamala, you're fired. Get out. Get out. You're fired.
Vice President Kamala Harris pushing for support in battleground Pennsylvania.
We have an opportunity before us to turn the page on the fear and the divisiveness that have characterized our politics for a decade because of Donald Trump.
Plus, more star power on the campaign trail. We will bring you the latest. It's not just the presidency hanging in the balance. We'll break down the key races that will determine who controls the Senate. And in Massachusetts, the battle over legalizing so-called magic mushrooms for medicinal use is on the ballot. We've got team coverage. Developing this morning, escalation and retaliation in the Middle East. This morning, Hamas claiming responsibility for a deadly bus stop attack in Tel Aviv, and the new proposal by Egypt for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. Plus, it has been an out-of-this-world World Series so far, with the Dodgers taking a 2-0 lead over the Yankees in dramatic style. Now the boys in blue are heading to the Bronx for Game 3. But will Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani be in the lineup after his Game 2 injury? We'll get you caught up before the first pitch tonight. Good morning. Good to have you with us on a busy Monday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. It is a new week, and the election is now 8 days away, with early voting now underway in many places across the country. President Biden is set to cast his ballot today in his home state of Delaware, joining the tens of millions who've already voted. Data from Target Smart, analyzed by NBC News' Decision Desk, shows that almost 43 million people have already cast their ballots. Breaking the vote down by party, 42% of them are Democrats, while 40% are Republicans. It is slated to be a busy final full week of campaigning for both Vice President Harris and former President Trump. Harris will hold events today in Michigan, while Mr. Trump will be in the battleground state of Georgia. The former president hosted a controversial rally yesterday at a packed Madison Square Garden here in New York, not a battleground state. The rally is making big headlines. Mr. Trump's remarks were overshadowed by crude and racist remarks made by several speakers, including a stand-up comic who called Puerto Rico, quote, an island of garbage. Here's some of what was said.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay, all right. Believe it or not, people, I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies, too. Just know that. They do. They do.
This is Donald Trump's house, brother. You know something, Trump maniacs? I don't see no stinking Nazis in here. I don't see no stinking domestic terrorists in here. The only thing I see in here are a bunch of hard-working men and women that are real Americans, brother.
The United States is now an occupied country, but it will soon be an occupied country no longer. Not going to be happening. Not going to be happening.
For the latest on the race for the White House, we're joined now by NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns, who's covering the Trump campaign, and NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba, who's covering Vice President Harris. Good morning to both of you. Dasha, let's begin with you and that Trump rally at Madison Square Garden. We just played some of the controversial comments that were made throughout the day and evening at that rally. Explain to us the Trump campaign's decision to host an event with just over a week to go in a city that overwhelmingly votes Democratic, And just what more you can tell us about these speakers, their questionable remarks, and how the former president's campaign is responding.
So first of all, Joe, to that comedian, the Trump campaign almost immediately tried to distance themselves, saying in a statement that this joke does not reflect the Trump campaign's values. Wasn't specific about which joke exactly they are talking about, but plenty of Republicans also posted their own statements saying that they love Puerto Rico, that they disavow those comments. But, you know, this is kind of typical at a Trump rally where some of the speakers earlier in the day in the pre-program will say pretty outlandish, controversial, and offensive things. This is just a much bigger platform. And that was the whole point of this rally. I mean, the former president is a native New Yorker. He's always dreamed of packing in the garden, and that's what he did. But of course, that also means that it elevates some of those pre-program speakers and some of those offensive comments. And the former president himself actually mostly stuck to the script, his closing message being the economy and immigration. Of course, his rhetoric also escalatory when it comes to particularly that topic of immigration. You played some of those comments. He did also lean in to his past controversial comments talking about the enemy from within. And he repeated the line that is the sort of big picture closing message for the campaign, which is that Harris broke it and he will fix it, Joe.
Right, Monica, let's bring you in to talk about the Harris campaign. She spent yesterday with supporters in Philadelphia and also unveiled a policy plan aimed at helping Puerto Rico. Was that done as a response to those remarks we just heard from the Trump rally, or was it already planned? And just in this pivotal weekend, what was her message to her base and to the undecided voters out there?
Yeah, the timing was pretty significant here, Joe, because actually the vice president rolled that out hours before those comments were made, and she had spent time visiting a Puerto Rican restaurant and had put out a video about her policies and what she would do for the Puerto Rican community, of which there is a large one and a notable one in Pennsylvania in particular, and that's where she spent all of her day yesterday, going from different local events and going to church and really trying to hammer out her closing message. And absolutely, you've heard now from the campaign and from a lot of the top surrogates and people like Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny, who has 45 million followers on Instagram, posting those comments that the vice president had put out about her own plan to try to put the attention in terms of her pitch to Puerto Ricans there, as opposed to those offensive comments made at the Trump rally, the Harris campaign said. But here's a little bit more of her overall closing message, which we're going to see every day for sure for the next 8. Listen.
We have an opportunity before us to turn the page on the fear and the divisiveness that have characterized our politics for a decade because of Donald Trump. We have the ability to turn the page on that same old tired playbook because we are exhausted with it. There is too much on the line, and we must not wake up the day after the election and have any regrets about what we could have done.
So in this final stretch, there's definitely a big emphasis on what Donald Trump has said, what he's done, and you're really going to see that in stark display tomorrow when the vice president speaks at the Ellipse near the White House, the site, of course, of where Donald Trump spoke on January 6th before the Capitol riot. Joe.
Yeah, so we've recapped the weekend. Let's talk about what's ahead this week. Dasha, first with you. Former President Trump slated to hold campaign events in several battleground states, places that will likely determine the election. What can you tell us about his week ahead?
Yeah, he's blitzing pretty much all the battlegrounds, Joe. He'll be in Pennsylvania, of course, Georgia today, Wisconsin, Nevada, New Mexico. But just as he hosted this massive event at Madison Square Garden, and notably not a swing state, because he believes these sorts of events are high impact and they get attention, he's also headed on Saturday, just a few days before Election Day, to the state of Virginia, which he has claimed is in play, though it hasn't been in a long time for Republicans. It's not in play according to the polls, but he believes he can win it. Again, those are the sorts of things that the campaign is strategically doing to try to draw a little bit of extra attention to his campaign events, Joe.
And Monica, you mentioned the speech at the Ellipse tomorrow. What all is ahead for Vice President Harris as she continues her campaign this week?
So today she'll spend all of her time in Michigan. Tomorrow she'll be in D.C. for that major closing argument speech. And then on Wednesday, she's going to be hitting Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin all in one day. And then Thursday, she's going to head out west to campaign in Nevada and in Arizona. So exactly right now, the moment is all about hitting all the battlegrounds in as few days as possible. And you're going to be seeing Governor Tim Walz, the vice president's running mate, doing the same up until the very final day here.
All right,
Joe.
Dasha and Monica kicking us off this hour. Thank you both. Speaking of running mates, former President Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, appeared on Meet the Press this weekend. He spoke about how another Trump administration would handle foreign and domestic affairs if elected. Vance was also pressed about how deeply his support of the former president ran if it came down to Mr. Trump versus the Constitution. Here's moderator Kristen Welker.
Hello there, Joe. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke to former President Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, about where his loyalties lie if he has to choose between the Constitution and Donald Trump. Former Vice President Mike Pence said, quote, President Trump asked me to put him over my oath to the Constitution. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. Will your loyalty, Senator, be to the Constitution or to Donald Trump?
Well, of course, my loyalty is to the American people and to the United States Constitution. But I think the best way to accomplish that loyalty, Kristen, is to get back to a president who delivered the fastest rising take-home pay in a generation, 1.5% inflation, and a secure southern border. I don't think there's inconsistency between loyalty to the Constitution and support for Donald Trump. That's why I'm out there trying to persuade my fellow Americans that Donald Trump's presidency worked for them, and I'd like us to get back to those smart policies.
Just to put a very fine point on this, Mike Pence says Trump asked him to put Trump over the Constitution. If you find yourself in a similar position one day, will your loyalty be to the Constitution or to Donald J. Trump?
I just said my loyalty, Kristen, is to the Constitution.
You can see my full interview and a lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much. So if this election is like 2020, then more than 155 million people will vote in the race for president. And yet the entire race will likely come down to the ballots of about 200,000 voters across 7 battleground states. That's where the candidates are dedicating most of their time ahead of next week's election. So you might be wondering, how does such a big decision come down to such a small group? NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin explains.
Hello to Georgia.
I love you, too.
We love you, Las Vegas.
Of the 50 states that will tally votes this election day, voters in just 7 of them are likely to determine the next president. Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. And if you live in one of these so-called battlegrounds, you are at the center of the political universe.
Kamala Harris failed. Trump is not fit to be president again.
With a lot of political power.
Too many ads. I think we ought to put a limit on that.
I hear it every day, 24/7.
So why does a national race come down to just a handful of states? To answer that, we need to understand the Electoral College. And it's in large part thanks to
Alexander
Hamilton and the Founding Fathers couldn't decide whether the people or Congress should choose the president. They eventually compromised, and in 1787, the Electoral College was born. Every state is given a number of electoral votes equal to its number of House members and senators in Congress. That totals 538, which is why the candidate who collects 270 electoral votes, one more than half, claims the presidency. It also means a candidate who loses the popular vote can still win the White House. It's already happened 5 times in U.S. history, including most recently to Donald Trump in 2016. With polling, the campaigns already have a very good sense of how people in more than 40 of the 50 states are going to vote. And both sides also know they have to find a few more electoral votes to win.
It's about a few swing voters in a few swing counties located in a few swing states that are deciding the election.
So in the 2024 race, Trump and Harris have zeroed in on the so-called Significant 7, spending millions on rallies, TV ads, and texts, trying to tip those states in their favor.
So how should voters in the other 43 states feel going into the presidential election?
They're probably feeling a little ignored. They shouldn't forget about Congress. They shouldn't forget about the House of Representatives, the Senate.
Battlegrounds do shift over time, so it's not always the same swing states deciding the election.
They need Florida. Florida, 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 Florida.
In the 2000 election, it was all about Florida. Today, the Sunshine State is solidly red, with places like Pennsylvania and Georgia now in play. But in a nation of 350 million people from sea to shining sea, this election will hinge on the votes of a tiny fraction.
This election is down to what about 150,000 to 200,000 voters are going to do across the 7 states.
Our thanks to Julie Sirkin for that report. Now, after 2020, it took a few days of recounts and certifications before the winner was determined. This time around, officials say several states have streamlined workflows to try and process those early votes. Some states have also hired more poll workers and increased security. Well, once again, social media is playing a major role in this year's election, especially on TikTok, where some political videos are getting more than 1 billion views. Our own Savannah Sellers spoke to one researcher who says this kind of content is motivating the nation's youngest voters, Gen Z, to take action.
I'm a never Trump guy.
Across TikTok, political content is flooding feeds like never before.
Did you vote? Are you gonna vote? Will you vote for me?
Posts about Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump racking up 1.4 and 1.3 billion views, according to social media analytics company Zelf. Whether they're informational,
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris just met for the very first time,
or satirical.
No.
Those videos likely to get in front of what could be a critical voting bloc this election, Gen Z, which made up nearly 45% of U.S. users on TikTok in 2023, according to market research company eMarketer.
TikTok is such a powerful tool. And I think
TikToker Melinda Hale first started posting during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay, real talk. Let's talk about the difference between what Kamala Harris wants to do for Black men and what Trump wants to do.
Her videos now often break down issues such as racial justice, reproductive health care, and climate change.
And I love being able to use my platform and use my voice to explain things that I care about in a way that is digestible for my followers and in a way that helps them understand, specifically with like policies that are happening and things to vote on for this election.
Welcome back, Patriots.
Some Gen Z TikTokers, like conservative creator Heaven Angel, trying to reach their peers.
As a Gen Z conservative, I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why I'm voting for Trump.
She says her content reaches users on both ends of the political spectrum. Her message to the TikTok generation, one of unity.
I think you're going to see within our generation people that want to actually come together and find solutions rather than having problems to be able to campaign about, because we're sick and tired of this.
According to a new NBC News Stay Tuned poll of 18 to 29-year-olds powered by SurveyMonkey, 77% of young voters believe the country is on the wrong track, up 10 points from August. The big question, will this generation turn out to vote? 58% say they will.
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Both the Harris and Trump campaigns turning to TikTok to try to turn out the vote, posting TikToks of campaign stops.
President Trump! Well, that's a good-looking group. Hello, everybody.
And embracing viral trends.
What is your name as a group?
The Click.
That direct messaging, a way to reach voters on an app that has banned all political ads since 2019. But nonprofit Global Witness says it was able to get several ads with political disinformation approved by TikTok, raising questions about how well the platform is able to filter its content. A TikTok spokesperson telling us 4 ads were incorrectly approved during the first stage of moderation, but did not run on our platform. We do not allow political advertising and will continue to enforce this policy on an ongoing basis.
Make some noise for my very good friend, Elon Musk. Muskie. He has a lot of money, but not as much money as me.
The type of content users are consuming on TikTok could prove critical.
We were trying to see, well, maybe this is all just trivializing politics. Maybe this isn't really very informative or useful. We really didn't know what we would find.
Researchers at Loyola Marymount University say the platform is motivating people to participate in politics, from watching more videos to donating and volunteering with campaigns in a way no other social media has.
So I was surprised to see that it was actually seemingly having the effect of mobilizing people to take part in political action, which we say we want them to do.
Go vote. Love y'all. Bye.
Savannah Sellers, NBC News.
Well, After a gorgeous weekend here in the Northeast, let's see what's in store for the week ahead. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with the Morning News Now forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Well, it's going to be all about location today and throughout most of the week, specifically for the Northeast. We're starting out really frigid. Temperatures at the freezing mark in some spots. New England certainly chilly today. So feeling like fall in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, also New England. The middle of the country is still feeling like summer. We're going to see temperatures soaring 10, 20, 30 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. We're going to be chasing record once again. And then out to the west, we have a series of fronts that will be moving through. That's going to bring the chance for some rain and some higher elevation snow. So some of the Rockies could see feet of snow as we head throughout today and also tomorrow. Let's start with those really chilly temperatures in the Northeast, also parts of the Mid-Atlantic. We have 21 million people impacted by freeze alerts. We have frost advisories. That is in the pink, so for South Hill. Also Roanoke in this hot pink color. From Philadelphia to D.C., Richmond, we are looking at freeze warnings. That includes Middletown as well. And it is a chilly start to the day. It's going to feel very fall-like by the afternoon. Not feeling like fall in the middle of the country. There's that jet stream still tacked so high to the north, closing off any cooler air from Canada, bringing in that warm southerly flow. So we're looking at temperatures into the 80s and 90s, once again chasing those records. That's what's in that orange box right next to those numbers. So 82 in Albuquerque today, 88 in Oklahoma City, Shreveport 89 degrees, and into the 90s in El Paso. That is today. We're going to do it once again tomorrow. Notice all those dark colors showing us that warm air in place. It now is into the Ohio Valley, parts of the Great Lakes. So Minneapolis, 80 degrees tomorrow. The record there is 78. Into the 80s in St. Louis, 87 in Little Rock, 89 in Longview, 85 degrees in Dodge City. So as we go throughout the rest of the week, we're going to see that warmth kind of spread into the Northeast. So look at New York City. By Halloween, 78 degrees, 80 degrees on Halloween in D.C. And we're looking at temperatures really warm, too, in Lexington on Wednesday and Thursday. 80s, 78 on Thursday. Atlanta, we're going to be into the 70s and 80s as well. That is the warm spot. As we head further to the west, we are talking about snow, and we do have winter alerts throughout the Central Rockies, and again, could see feet of snow. This is due to a really strong cold front that's going to bring some gusty winds as well. So I do want to mention that the gusty winds could promote that fire danger in portions of the plains as well, because we're going to see winds gusting over 30 miles per hour.
Still seeing fires this time of year.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, a McDonald's staple back on the menu as the investigation into an E. coli outbreak continues. What the fast food giant is saying now about the possible source. Up first after the break, tensions mounting in the Middle East following a deadly bus stop attack in Tel Aviv. Stay with us. Welcome back. We turn now to the latest out of the Middle East. One person was killed. Dozens were injured on Sunday. A truck rammed a bus stop near Tel Aviv in what's believed to be a suspected terrorist attack. This comes after Israel launched a retaliatory strike on Iran early Saturday, marking a new escalation between the two sides. Israel targeted military facilities near Tehran in retaliation for Iran's ballistic missile strikes at the start of the month. Iran said the strike killed 4 soldiers and has largely played down the attack. That is easing fears of a wider war in the Middle East, at least for now. Meanwhile, Egypt is proposing a short truce in Gaza. Well, Israel has forged on with its offensive in the area. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest. Raf, good morning. Lots to get to. Let's start with that suspected terror attack in Israel. What do we know so far?
So, Joe, we were at the scene yesterday. It's an area a little bit north of Tel Aviv. It's near the entrance to a military base. But actually, the majority of the victims here were senior citizens. There was one man in his early 70s who was killed, another 30 or so injured. And you can see there that truck just came ramming into that bus stop at very high speed. Police there tell us that the driver was a Palestinian man with Israeli citizenship. He was shot dead at the scene by armed civilians, the police say. Now, at this point, they believe that this was a terror attack. They haven't yet officially confirmed that, but Hamas and other Palestinian militant groups have been praising this incident, saying that it was a natural response to what's been going on in Gaza and in Lebanon. Jeff.
Raf, let me ask you about what I mentioned a moment ago. Egypt proposing a short truce in Gaza to exchange Palestinian prisoners for Hamas hostages. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Joe, so Egypt's theory of the case has been that the world has been trying and failing for a year now to get to a comprehensive ceasefire, an end to the war in Gaza in exchange for the release of all of the remaining hostages. And so their theory here is, why not try for a shorter, smaller deal to try to jumpstart the negotiations? So the president of Egypt yesterday floating the idea of a 2-day ceasefire in exchange for the release of just 4 hostages, and they hope that that could pave a path towards a broader agreement. The CIA director was in Qatar yesterday for negotiations that also included the Israeli spy chief, the head of the Mossad. Those talks focusing largely on this Egyptian proposal. The U.S. says it is somewhat optimistic that the killing of Hamas's hardline leader Yahya Sinwar removes one of the main obstacles to the talks. But I can tell you, Joe, there were no breakthroughs in Qatar yesterday.
And Raf, Iran has largely played down Israel's retaliatory strikes over the weekend. Now Iran faces a decision on how to respond. So what do we know so far about those targets that were hit near Tehran, and just what Iran's saying about striking back at Israel?
So Israeli military says that it targeted ballistic missile production facilities, the places that made those missiles that were fired here back on October 1st. They also say they targeted Iranian air defenses, making it easier for another strike in the future. Israel says, from its perspective, this round of fighting is done. It has no intention of escalating. The question now is what Iran's supreme leader decides to do. He met with the families of those 4 soldiers who were killed over the weekend, and he didn't make explicit threats against Israel, but he also left the door very much open to revenge strikes. And Joe, of course, with soldiers dead, that does create some domestic political pressure inside of Iran for retaliation. President Biden, speaking to reporters over the weekend, says neither side should escalate further.
Joe. Raf, thank you so much. More international news now. Recovery efforts are underway in the Philippines after a deadly tropical storm. NBC's Matt Bodner has the latest on that, plus some other world headlines. Matt, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Let's kick things off this hour in the Philippines, where mudslides caused by a tropical storm buried dozens of houses last week. The storm is the latest and most deadly in a series of climate change-related weather events to hit the Philippines this year, and more than 130 people have died. The island nation has long been seen as a hotspot for natural disasters, but more and more of the population is coming under threat as weather events worsen with the climate crisis. Moving along now to the post-Soviet nation of Georgia, which held parliamentary elections over the weekend. The pro-Russian Georgian Dream Party is claiming victory in the election with more than 54% of the vote. But the nation's president and pro-European politicians are claiming massive fraud. The Georgian president went so far as to say she did not recognize the results and that this was the result of a Russian special operation. And we'll wrap up this hour right here in the UK, where Scotland Yard has been called in to investigate a large-scale cheese heist. Neil Yard's Dairy, a cheesemaker here, says that a con artist posing as a French wholesaler had stolen almost 50,000 pounds worth of their award-winning cheddar cheese. Now, that is not U.S. pounds, that's British pounds. The total value of the lost product comes out to about $400,000 US. Neil Yard's Dairy says that the high value of the cheddar made them a prime target for cheese thieves. Back to you, Joe.
I just want to know what they're going to do with the cheese now. Is there a black market for really fancy cheese? We'll have to wait and see what happens. All right,
we'll find out.
Thank you so much. Coming up, hanging in the balance. Up next, our continuing coverage of the election with a look at the key races that could change the balance of power on Capitol Hill. You're watching Morning News now. We are back with a look at what's happening just beneath the top of the ticket. Beyond the race for the White House, some key contests will determine which party controls the Senate. And that will determine whether the next president's agenda will enjoy a smooth passage in the upper chamber. Right now, Democrats are in control with a very slim majority, but holding that control will not be easy. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale's been looking into this and now has control of the big board. Ali, good morning. Good to have you with us. Just walk us through some of these key matchups that we should be watching out for in the battleground states.
Control of the big board, Joe, and it also lets us sort of control what could happen in some of these Senate contests, because as much as we love the races at the top of the ticket, this is the reality for those of us who cover Congress and also for any president who wants to see their agenda get enacted. So you look at some some of these key races in places like Arizona and Florida, those are two of the key contests that we're watching for very different reasons. Arizona, of course, because Ruben Gallego is challenging Carrie Lake there. This is a seat that Democrats feel pretty good about, despite the fact that Carrie Lake is one of former President Trump's closest allies. And Trump, of course, has seen success in Arizona before. But we're also looking at key contests in places like Michigan, where Jon Tester probably has the hardest job of any Democrat on the map right now, because he's trying to keep his seat in a deep red state. The same can be said for Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, who is going to have to outperform whatever Vice President Kamala Harris does in the state at the top of the ticket. We can get into a little bit of the breakdown of these coming up later in the segment.
Yeah, let's do that. What are some of the possible paths for a majority for both Democrats and Republicans, and just talk about how tight some of these margins are?
Yeah, so the margins are pretty tight, but let's go through and just assign a few of these races to some columns early on. In Maryland, for example, you've got Angela Brooks challenging Larry Hogan. Larry Hogan, a popular former Republican governor in the blue state, but Democrats are feeling like this is going to fall into their column. Similarly, on the other side, Republicans are still feeling good about Florida, Rick Scott being able to keep his seat there. We also talk about Texas often. Ted Cruz, the incumbent senator there, challenged by Colin Allred, a Democratic Republican House member right now. As much as Allred is making a go of it, Democrats regularly try, and we have not yet seen them succeed in Texas. So let's put that in the red column. Let's also do the same over in West Virginia, because this is probably the most obvious flip on the map for Republicans. This seat previously held by Senator Joe Manchin, now likely to go to the former Republican governor Jim Justice there. Then you also look at Nebraska, not a race that typically would be on this kind of a map, because Deb Fischer is the Republican incumbent, but Dan Osborne, the independent, has made this a really tight race. Still, Republicans maintain this is going to be a race that falls into their column, and that already puts them at 50. Then you look at some of these other ones. Let's assign Arizona to the Democratic column. Michigan, we can do the same, where Alyssa Slotkin is challenging to keep for an open seat that's already held by a Democrat. Let's also put Nevada, where Jackie Rosen is the incumbent senator, into the Democratic column. We'll do the same with Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, always a tough one, but Bob Casey, the incumbent there, let's assume it goes to the incumbent. This is still a best-case scenario for Democrats, and it leaves Montana and Ohio. Again, Ohio, Sherrod Brown has outperformed the top of the ticket before. Let's assume that he's able to do it again in Ohio. Even if in Montana, Jon Tester was able to keep his seat, that is still a 50-50 Senate. But more likely in Montana, Republicans feel like this is going to go into their column. That's what most of my Republican sources have said, too. So that could be Republican control right there.
It's going to be tight. And a reminder, if it is 50-50, then whoever wins the White House has the vice president who breaks the tie.
Very busy job.
The Senate. There you go. Ali Vitale, thanks for breaking it down. We appreciate it. Now, in the race for president, some of the most critical election battleground states are in the Sun Belt. That's why both Republican and Democratic groups are now going door to door, talking to voters in places like Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina. NBC News Washington correspondent Yamiche Alcindor tagged along with one group in North Carolina.
An urgent push in the final weeks before the election.
How do you plan on voting this year?
Straight Democrat.
Okay.
I think she is so cool.
Competing door knocking from Democrats and Republicans here in North Carolina.
You seem really passionate about President Trump getting reelected.
I am, for sure.
Michigan and Pennsylvania come up time and time again as key battleground states.
Upstairs unit.
Yet the Sun Belt is emerging as critical. One Democrat-aligned group, Way to Win, says it's investing $41 million to help Vice President Harris win the Sun Belt, specifically Georgia, Arizona, and here in North Carolina. Tori Gavito, the group's president, says the left can't rely on just a few states.
We cannot play on this game of inches anymore, where we're relying on 2 to 3 states in the north to get us to the path to the White House. It's the future. The fastest growing communities are in the Sun Belt.
Those fast growing communities are transforming the map for president. Since 2008, Michigan and Pennsylvania have lost 4 electoral college votes, but these states have gained 4. Florida and Texas gained another 9. And while historically aging populations have moved south for the weather, now plenty of families looking for new opportunities are going there too. Some Republicans also think lower taxes in these states are attracting people they can win over. Andrew Covelt of Turning Point USA, a conservative group, says their ground game is focused on connecting with low propensity voters.
People that don't vote as often, like Donald Trump, they support Donald Trump.
So that's a challenge. It's a opportunity, and we plan to seize it.
So we're going to go to the ones on craft.
Here in Raleigh, North Carolina, which leaned blue in 2020, Trump and GOP volunteer canvassers are hoping to boost turnout.
You were early voting this year? Okay, great.
We had 81% of Republicans turn out in 2020, and we're aiming to have that number even higher in 2024.
Polls show the race is close across the Sun Belt. Democrats hope to energize the electorate that helped Obama win here in North Carolina back in 2008, the only time a Dem candidate carried the state in the last 44 years. The black population here makes up more than 20% of the state. In Georgia, it's more than 30%. And about 3 out of 10 people in Arizona and Nevada are Hispanic. With those numbers in mind, some of Way to Win's funding is paying canvassers, like Keenan Coleman, targeting rural areas like his hometown of Wilson.
If I do have a conversation on a Tuesday, I can run into you at Walmart on Thursday, and we can have another conversation. So it brings the whole thing together.
Of course, demographics don't tell the whole story. Talking with voters can lead to surprises, like this black man who questioned Harris's race.
So you tell me, just because she's Jamaican, how does that make her black?
Am I black?
Because she says she's black.
I say I'm black and I'm Jamaican. So.
Right.
Despite Trump's comments to the contrary, Harris's father is black, and she identifies as black and Indian.
Well, I don't agree with no woman going out killing that unborn child.
Yes, ma'am.
There was also this anti-abortion rights voter we met who says she just can't vote for the former president. What is it about Trump that you really don't like?
I just don't like Trump, period. It's rude and racist.
Just a few of the opinions here in the Sun Belt that could decide the next president. Yemi Shalsendor, NBC News.
Now, when voters in Massachusetts go to the polls, one question on the ballot asks whether the state should legalize magic mushrooms for medicinal use. It's known as Question 4. Advocates say mushrooms can be a powerful tool to treat certain mental health disorders. But some doctors worry the drugs can be more harmful than helpful. NBC News national correspondent Yasmin Masukian takes a closer look.
Magic mushrooms help define the hippie generation, considered a party drug of sorts.
We're having a really fun night, actually. We're kind of going, not too hard, but pretty hard.
And a core comedic tool in whole chunks of Seth Rogen movies. Now its legalization is on the ballot in Massachusetts. The idea is to help Americans struggling with therapy-resistant depression. Question 4 includes the legalization and regulation of 5 psychedelics under licensed supervision, including authorizing individuals 21 years of age or older to grow, possess, and use a personal amount.
I wanted to show to my friends, my family.
Emily Oneshock is the grassroots campaign director supporting the initiative Yes on 4.
I think it speaks to so many people in a time when I think hope is really important to foster and develop. This is something that can help a problem that we haven't been able to resolve with our current tools.
More than 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. lives with a mental illness, and many turn to psychotherapy for help with depression, anxiety, and PTSD. But for some, that doesn't work. Oneshock, who lost her brother to gun violence and served in the Navy, says she couldn't escape her trauma until she tried psilocybin.
I had no idea just like how much I had been holding on to. And it was like the first time in like 6 years that I had this touch point of like, oh, like I feel whole and I feel safe and I feel like I bring value to this world because I had forgotten.
And she's not alone. NBC Boston spoke with Michael Bethello, another veteran.
It is like a moment of clarity when you do this, but it's something that sticks with you. It's not just a moment. The clarity stays with you.
Psilocybin-assisted therapy, or mushrooms, has been designated by the Food and Drug Administration as a breakthrough therapy for patients with major depressive disorder or treatment-resistant depression. Dr. Hannah McLean citing one small study in our conversation.
A single session of psilocybin was effective at reducing symptoms in 71% of participants. And when given a second session of psilocybin a few weeks later, 54% of participants were in remission of their major depressive symptoms.
Dr. McLean's organization, the Sound Mind Institute, is helping train and certify people to become psilocybin trainers that guide patients through the process in a safe and effective way.
We're really using these medicines to enhance therapy.
The measure would also create a board to regulate licensing of the drugs.
But the president of the Massachusetts Psychiatric Society is opposed to the measure, arguing question 4 is too lax and could in fact be harmful.
So they can make people literally psychotic. When you look at the science, psilocybin has been shown to be better than nothing, placebo in some studies, but not better than standard antidepressants that we have now, which are safer. The way you do this safely and effectively is to study it, prove it, and then let doctors prescribe it appropriately and safely to people, not just let people grow it in their spare bedroom.
What do you think the uphill battle is that you face?
I think a lot of it is, like I said, the stigma.
Stigma Emily and Dr. McLean are trying to erase with legalization in Massachusetts.
Our thanks to Yasmin Masugian for that report. Right now in Massachusetts, psychedelics are classified as a Schedule I controlled substance, which means they are not accepted or legal for any medical use. Coming up, major developments in that E. coli outbreak linked to McDonald's as the fast food giant puts its quarter pounders back on the menu, but the company has ruled out as a possible source of the outbreak. Plus, they're down but not out. The New York Yankees hoping to turn the tide against the LA Dodgers as they head back home for Game 3 of what has been a thrilling World Series so far. We'll get you caught up before the first pitch later today, next on Morning News Now. Back now with some good news for McDonald's fans. The Quarter Pounder is back on the menu. CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and more money headlines. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good Monday morning to you. Yeah, so McDonald's is ruling out beef patties as a source of the E. coli outbreak linked to those quarter-pound hamburgers, which has killed at least one person and sickened roughly 75 others. McDonald's chief supply chain officer is saying the company is confident any contaminated product has been removed from supplies and is out of all restaurants. McDonald's says it will resume fresh supplies of the quarter pounder and expects them to be available in all locations in the coming week. Boeing is launching the sale of new stock that could raise roughly $19 billion as the aircraft maker looks to shore up its finances that have been hit by a month-long strike and a year-long safety crisis. Now, that combo has caused Boeing to burn through cash over the past 3 quarters. Just last week, Boeing said it's $6 billion in the third quarter. Now, raising capital is essential for Boeing to keep its investment-grade credit rating. And Apple is planning a week of announcements starting today. Now, that's expected to include the reveal of new Macs. In a post on X, Apple's marketing chief said, Mac your calendars. Now, it's long been rumored Apple would release new Macs upgraded with its own M4 chips. New hardware isn't the only thing Apple has lined up. Today, the company will release software updates to give iPhone, iPad, and Mac users their first taste of Apple Intelligence AI features, Joe.
All right, and we'll delve into that a little more next hour. Silvana, thank you so much. Here in New York, the Yankees are getting ready for Game 3 of the World Series tonight. They need a win. The Dodgers now lead the series 2-0. For more, let's bring in Keith Law. He is a senior baseball writer for The Athletic. Keith, good to have you back with us. So Yankees down 2 as they head home. Just how has this best-of-7 series looked so far? I mean, I know it's 2-0, but it's been pretty good. What are the standout moments or players?
Yeah, it's been outstanding, especially Game 1, which was incredibly tense. Dodgers won in a walk-off in the bottom of the 10th inning, a Freddie Freeman grand slam. For folks who don't know, Freddie Freeman is playing with a sprained ankle. So the Yankees actually pitched around the previous batter just to get to him, and he made them pay for it. I would also say that Dodgers bullpen looked extremely good in Game 2. The Dodgers took an early lead. They had 3 homers off Yankee starter Carlos Rodon and then shut the Yankees down until a brief scare in the 9th inning, which they still managed to hold off. That's why the Dodgers are up 2-0 as they head to New York.
Yeah, starting to wonder if we're going to see another grand slam there at the end of Game 2 before it was all wrapped up. All right, let's talk about Shohei Ohtani, that shoulder injury when he was trying to steal a base, adding insult to injury. He was out. How big of a deal is it? Do we expect him to be back in the lineup tonight?
The Dodgers and their manager, Dave Roberts, are saying lots of positive things. The expectation is he's going to play. They are, quote unquote, banking on him playing. Obviously, they'll have to see how he feels after, I'm assuming he takes batting practice later today. I'm sure there'll be a later check. It is a big deal if they lose him, right? He was the best player in the National League this year. He was an incredible offensive force in pretty much every possible way. He makes their lineup stronger. Now, I will say, baseball is not like basketball, for example, where if you lose your best player, you're just a totally different team. The Dodgers are still a very good lineup if they don't have Ohtani. They're just better. They're deeper. He's a power threat. He's a threat to get on base. He was a threat to steal a base. I'm going to assume that if he plays and he gets on base, they're going to tell him not to try to steal again, especially that situation. That base didn't mean a whole lot.
No.
He may have hurt himself for very little potential gain.
It almost felt like he just wanted to steal a base there.
I think so.
Let's talk more about Freddie Freeman there. Obviously the hero of Game 1. His family just went through a health scare. He's back. Talk a little more about what happened there and just how instrumental he is right now.
So his youngest son, he's got 3 kids. His youngest son, Max, developed first a condition, transient synovitis of the hip, which is common in very young kids. They stop walking. It's very scary to happen. Actually happened to my stepdaughter. And in Max's case, he then developed Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is an autoimmune disorder that often happens in the wake of a viral infection. The exact cause isn't totally known, but in his case, it became very severe, life-threatening. He had to go on a ventilator. He is relearning a lot of his gross motor skills, including just a couple weeks ago, Freddie Freeman's wife posted an update saying that he had begun walking again. This is a 3-year-old kid. So that is pretty terrifying to have to go through. And Freeman was even away from the team for about 10 days in July, attending to his son. So this was pretty intense, a really, really scary thing for any parent to go through. Obviously, it looks like Max is on the road to recovery.
No kidding. Glad they're doing better there. Real quick, we only have a few seconds here. It's hard to fathom. This is the first time in 15 years we're going to have a World Series game at Yankees Stadium. What are you looking out for tonight?
Look, the Yankees have got to put some runs on the board probably early. These next 2 games are their best chances against the Dodgers starters. And the big thing I'm watching, Aaron Judge, who has not looked like himself. The Dodgers have been attacking him with breaking stuff away. And Aaron Judge has really not been himself in terms of his approach. He's been chasing a lot of pitches he would normally take. He, I think, is the biggest key to getting that Yankees lineup going, to them scoring some runs early and trying to make this a series.
We'll see what happens. Keith Law, good to have you with us. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Coming up, spooky season in full swing, and it's not just the humans who are celebrating. Before you get your furry friends all dressed up for the occasion, we do have a warning about an uptick in emergency vet visits that could give you and your pets a little scare. So don't cool away. Watching Morning News now. Finally this hour, we've got a warning from veterinarians. Wearing costumes and eating candy might be fun for us. It can pose a serious risk to our furry friends. The Pet Poison Helpline reports a 12% increase in emergency calls every year during Halloween week. So for more, we're joined by veterinarian Dr. Ruth McPeet. She's also the author of the children's book, Lisette the Vet. And she's got a friend with her there. Doctor, good to have you with us. First of all, you got to introduce us to Moose here. Tell us more about Moose.
This is Moose, and Moose is a 4-year-old mini golden doodle who you can see just wants to give me kisses. And he's dressed as a lobster for Halloween.
Lobster kisses from Moose the dog. All right, so walk us through some of the most common Halloween hazards we see for pets.
Well, the first thing that I always recommend is that people keep their pets inside and safely away from the door, because sadly, every year we see a lot of lost pets. Pets get scared and they run away and they get out an open door. All those kids ringing your doorbell can be really unnerving, and even a calm animal can get. Moose is going to take off. But so all of those, trick-or-treaters can really unnerve even the calmest of pets. And so it's really important that people keep their pet away from open doors so that they don't get out. I always recommend keeping them in a back room and turning on the TV and radio to drown out the spooky sounds, and give them a treat or toy to keep them distracted.
We are grateful for Moose's cameo there. All right, so if someone plans to dress their pet in a costume, take their pet trick-or-treating. I saw a few dogs in like spider outfits yesterday walking around my neighborhood. What do they need to know to make sure their pet is safe?
Well, I always recommend that you choose a costume that is made for pets because those are going to be easier to get on and off. And then also make sure your pet is comfortable in that costume. If it's too tight or it's restricting or bothering the way that they're walking or rubbing, we don't want to use that costume. I also recommend never leaving your pet in a costume alone because you may think they're cute, but your pet may try to get it off and they can get tangled in the costume. They can strangle themselves or they can chew on it and ingest particles of the costume. So just never leave them alone in their costume.
We've got about 20 seconds left here, but if someone has a Halloween accident like a pet getting into candy, what's the best way to handle that situation?
The best thing to do is not wait for your pet to develop symptoms. If they get a hold of any candy, chocolate, sugar-free candy containing xylitol can be deadly. You want to call your veterinarian or local veterinary emergency clinic right away. Again, don't wait for symptoms.
All right, some important advice there as we look at these adorable pictures of these pets in costumes. Dr. Ruth McPeak, thank you so much for your time this morning. Please pass along our thanks to Moose as well.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now, but stay with us. The news continues right now. Right now on Morning News Now, final sprint. We are just over a week from Election Day, and the presidential candidates are ramping up campaign events and honing their messages to America.
They've done very bad things to this country. They are indeed the enemy from within. And
we are a new generation of leadership that is optimistic and excited about what our nation can do together.
In the final full week, Vice President Harris reaching out to voters in Philadelphia. A former President Trump rallied voters at a packed Madison Square Garden event. But this morning, that event is being overshadowed by racist jokes made before Mr. Trump even took the stage. We're going to have the latest from the campaign trail. Also this morning, the Middle East on edge. Iran weighing a response after Israel's first ever open attack on the country. President Biden pushing for peace, but fears of a wider war in the region are growing. What we've learned about a truck attack in Tel Aviv as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsens. Plus, beef's back on the menu. McDonald's has ruled out its quarter-pounder patties as the source of that deadly E. coli outbreak. But when the fan favorite returns, the fast food chain says it will be with one noticeable change. And breaking up with friends. It is a popular self-help topic on social media apps like TikTok. But is it the best way to tackle a tricky subject? Why some experts say there may be an easier way to move on. Good to have you with us this Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We begin this hour with the race for the White House with just 8 days to go until Election Day. Early voting is proving to be popular for millions of voters. According to data by TargetSmart and analyzed by NBC's Decision Desk, nearly more than 43 million people have now cast their ballots already. It's going to be a busy week ahead for the Trump campaign as the former president plans to hold events in several key battleground states. He held a campaign rally at Madison Square Garden yesterday in New York City, where some speakers told racist jokes and hurled vulgar insults. NBC's Garrett Hake has the latest.
Donald Trump heads here to Georgia later today for two events in what for him is a must-win battleground state. Now, this comes on the heels of that MAGA mega rally in Manhattan, where Trump's message was overshadowed by his supporters' dark and at times racist rhetoric. Donald Trump kicking off the campaign's final week with a massive rally overnight at New York's Madison Square Garden. The former president introduced by his wife Melania, lashing out at his political rival Kamala Harris with personal attacks.
Everyone knows she is a very low IQ individual.
Mr. Trump repeating his recent attacks on Democrats.
They are indeed the enemy from within.
But the rally took a dark and divisive tone long before Trump himself took the stage. Comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, the opening speaker, cracking a racist joke about Latinos. So vulgar, it's mostly unairable.
These Latinos, they love making babies, too. Just know that. They do. They do. There's no... They don't do that. They just like they did to our country.
Then pivoting to Puerto Rico.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
That joke not just offensive, but potentially politically unwise, too, with large populations of Puerto Rican voters spread out across the swing states, including more than 400,000 in Pennsylvania alone. The Trump campaign responding to the comedian's set, which included other racist attacks, saying this joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. Other speakers continued the attacks. Radio host Sid Rosenberg on Hillary Clinton.
What a sick son of a...
Many targeting Harris.
Her and her pimp handlers will destroy our country.
Trump friend David Rem calling her the devil.
She is the Antichrist.
Tucker Carlson also attacking the vice president, who is Indian American and black.
The first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ, former California prosecutor ever to be elected president.
As the speakers rallied the crowd.
It needs to be a landslide. We need to slaughter this other people.
And Trump delivered his closing message.
Everyone will prosper, every family will thrive, and every day will be filled with opportunity and hope. And very much so, it will be filled with the American dream. We're bringing back the American dream.
That joke about Puerto Rico continuing to draw attention and condemnation overnight, including from some celebrities with ties to the island. Bad Bunny, Jennifer Lopez, Ricky Martin, all posting about Harris's plan for the island, which happened by coincidence to come out yesterday as well. A very different message shared to their millions of followers than what was presented to folks at that rally.
All right, Garrett, thank you so much. Vice President Harris is set to spend the day in battleground Michigan. She kicked off her final push to Election Day with a rally there over the weekend, appearing alongside former First Lady Michelle Obama for the first time. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from Washington with more on the Harris campaign. Gabe, good morning.
Hey there, Joe. Good morning. This morning, the Harris campaign is slamming the rhetoric at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally, and the vice president is focusing today on the economy, touting her support for manufacturing in a must-win state.
In the final sprint to Election Day, Vice President Harris set to barnstorm battleground Michigan, where early voting kicked off Saturday, and more than 1.5 million people have already cast their ballots. Harris rallying in the state on Saturday, joined for the first time on the campaign trail by Michelle Obama, the former First Lady, addressing voters, especially men, with a message on reproductive rights.
I recognize that there are a lot of angry, disillusioned people out there. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. So are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety?
The Harris campaign continuing that focus after a massive rally Friday in Ruby Red, Texas, with superstar Beyonce.
We must vote, and we need you. It's time to sing a new song.
On Sunday, the vice president crisscrossing Philadelphia.
I so strongly believe that our campaign in this fight really is not against something, it is for something.
And also preparing to deliver her closing argument in a primetime speech tomorrow from the Ellipse in the shadow of the White House, the same place where former President Trump spoke ahead of the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
He is full of dark language that is about retribution and revenge. And so the American people have a choice. It's either going to be that or it'll be me there, focused on my to-do list.
Meanwhile, the White House says President Biden will vote early today in Delaware as he continues a more low-profile campaign role on behalf of his vice president. Joe.
All right, Gabe, thank you so much. Now, throughout this presidential campaign, NBC News has been speaking with undecided voters in key swing states. So now, with just over a week until Election Day, NBC's Dasha Burns caught up with some of them to find out if they've made up their minds.
Are you voting for?
They're the most coveted voters in America.
I'm still deciding.
Undecided voters across the 7 battleground states. NBC News has been interviewing them throughout the campaign.
I'm still kind of undecided.
But now, with days left to go, do you feel like you've learned enough? We're following up. Have they made their decision?
It's an important factor.
Kate Snow spoke to Lynn Kelleher of Pennsylvania back in September after the Trump and Harris debate. Her thoughts then:
I'm not happy with either candidate.
We spoke to Lynn again. The lifelong Republican is weighing pocketbook issues and her conscience. She still considers herself undecided, but
if you had to make a decision right this moment with what you know right now, what do you do?
I'd have to vote for Kamala. Well, I think that she's misguided, as is her party. I don't think that she's an awful human being. And I think that Donald is.
Hannah Reid told us after the debate that Vice President Harris still had to win her vote.
She has a lot of questions she needs to answer.
Hannah also remains undecided, but is leaning toward Vice President Harris.
Policy-wise, I would vote for Kamala.
Some of the undecided voters we spoke to earlier this election didn't want to share where they stand now. Others didn't respond to our request for an interview. This is what Denise Lewis of Arizona told Jacob Soboroff after the debate.
It feels like a connection has been formed between you and Vice President Harris that wasn't there before tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, she's leaning toward Harris, but still uncertain.
Why are you still undecided?
Because I'm not hearing what I need to hear. It might even come down to a coin toss. Yeah, a mental coin toss.
Tufts University professor Brian Schaffner says traditionally only about half of undecideds will vote. And in the last two elections, they've broken for Trump.
It seems like what was happening in both those races is that you had a lot of Republicans who were pretty reluctant to vote for Trump and therefore were pretty non-committal up until the last moment.
Back in September, Pennsylvania restaurant owner Andrew Wallace appeared to be swayed a little.
You told me you're about 51% Trump, 49% Harris right now after the debate tonight.
Yeah.
Moved a tiny bit for you.
But now
I'm between going to the ballot box and choosing the day of or sitting home. It's hard for me to sit out, but I don't like either candidate.
A choice for many isn't just between two candidates, but between voting or staying home. Dasha Burns, NBC News.
In the battle for control of the Senate, several key contests could determine whether the new president's agenda, whoever that is, succeeds or fails. Some Democratic senators who managed to hold on to their seats in red states are now facing major challenges. NBC's Alice Barr takes a closer look at how the partisan divide is affecting the Senate.
As Vice President Harris and former President Trump battle down to the wire, hotly contested congressional races are more quietly shaping the balance of power in Washington.
This is an election that you can't sit out.
Texas Representative Colin Allred challenging Senator Ted Cruz.
There has never been a starker choice.
In what could be Democrats' only chance to flip a Senate seat, the party's narrow two-seat majority is at risk, with competitive races for 8 Senate seats now held by Democrats, including bright red states like Montana, where Democratic incumbent John Tester has managed to hold on for 3 terms, 18 years.
Raised within 100 miles of where I was born.
But where former President Trump is widely popular.
We also voted to impeach Donald Trump twice.
And the partisan divide is now so wide that voters willing to stretch across to split their ticket may be vanishing.
When it's in the most extreme part of the swing, it somehow is difficult in a given moment to imagine that it can be different. And yet, of course, it can be different.
Longtime Senate staffer Martin Gold has closely watched the political pendulum swing.
I've been in Washington 60 years.
He points to a time when the parties were more internally fractured.
You had at that time major divisions within the party caucuses themselves. You had liberal Republicans. I worked for a couple of them, and you had conservative Republicans, and you had liberal Democrats and conservative Democrats. So party line voting was not common. You tended to get more cooperation across party lines.
One way to break through the partisan gridlock, change the Senate rules. For example, Vice President Harris recently backed suspending the 60-vote filibuster to restore federal abortion rights.
I think we need to take a look at the filibuster, to be honest with you.
That would bypass Republican objections, but
taking away the filibuster is a big accelerant to polarization.
So what can make a difference?
We feel these things at a very identity level.
George Washington University assistant professor Casey Burgett has this advice.
I always tell folks that if you are frustrated with politics, the worst thing you can do is step back from politics.
A critical reminder that leaders in Washington, in fact, are led by the voters and the power of the ballot. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Now, the latest development in that deadly E. coli outbreak tied to McDonald's. The beef patties used in the fast food chain's Quarter Pounders have now been ruled out as the source of contamination. The company announced Sunday that no E. coli was detected in the patties sampled by the Colorado Agriculture Department. The company now says that the most likely source of the outbreak stems from slivered onions from a single source. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us now from McDonald's global headquarters in Chicago with the latest. Maggie, good morning. So the source of the contamination now does appear to be contained to one particular ingredient and geography. What did McDonald's have to say about this, and just what have we learned more from this testing done by Colorado?
Yeah, we'll start there. The Colorado Department of Agriculture, this is interesting. McDonald's says they're the primary agency testing the beef patties, in particular because Colorado is home to dozens of cases. It's kind of a hub for this E. coli outbreak. So I want to read part of their statement issued by the Department of Ag yesterday. They say multiple lots of McDonald's fresh and frozen beef patties were collected across various locations, and this is the key. All samples were found to be negative of E. coli. So McDonald's kind of said, hey, that's good enough for us. Now they call the onions the likely source of this E. coli outbreak, the strongest language they've used yet. But as far as that geography goes, Joe, this is interesting. Those onions went to states, and we have a map of kind of where the outbreak has hit, where cases have popped up. Onions went to states kind of farther west, like think Colorado, again, being the hub. The onions came from a Colorado warehouse. But a lot of the affected locations, McDonald's says, were in airports. So now they suspect a lot of customers ate the food in an airport, flew to a different state, perhaps as far east as like Wisconsin and Michigan, where cases are popping up, and then got sick there days later. So that might be why this outbreak, Joe, has so much reach.
And also can make it harder to track and figure out the source when you have all those people moving around. So Maggie, as part of the announcement yesterday, McDonald's now says it will resume sales of the Quarter Pounder burger this week, but with a slight change, right? Talk about that, and also that this comes as the company's president issued another apology.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, they're effectively holding the onions on Quarter Pounders in those affected states for the time being. We should know Taylor Farms, by the way, released a statement on Friday. That's the company where the onions came from. They said they're saddened by this outbreak. They've issued a preemptive recall while this continues, while the FDA continues to investigate those onions, which they have yet to say definitively that they're the source. McDonald's taking that step. And you're right, the president overnight releasing a new video apologizing to customers. Here's part of that.
I know that our relationship is built on trust. You trust us to serve you safe food every time. On behalf of the McDonald's system, I want you to hear from me. We are sorry. For those customers affected, you have my commitment that, led by our values, we will make this right.
McDonald's President Joe Erlinger there. By the way, this comes as we've been reporting as the company faces mounting lawsuits. Joe, by our count, at least 2 have been filed so far. But the attorney behind those lawsuits tells me he's been retained now by 31 families tied to this outbreak. So it's growing rapidly.
All right. Maggie Vespa, thank you so much. We turn now to the latest out of the Middle East. Israel launched a retaliatory strike on Iran early Saturday, marking a new escalation between the two nations. Iran said the strike killed 4 soldiers, but largely played down the attack. This morning, the region remains on edge as it awaits Iran's response. NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest. Raf, good morning.
Joe, good morning. The CIA director was in Qatar this weekend for talks focused on a new proposal from Egypt, a 2-day ceasefire in exchange for the release of 4 hostages. But those talks overshadowed by the tensions between Israel and Iran.
This morning, the Middle East on edge as Iran weighs its response to Israel's unprecedented airstrikes this weekend. Waves of fighter jets carrying out Israel's first ever open attack on its regional enemy, hitting military sites in retaliation for Iran's missile barrage at the start of the month. President Biden urging both sides not to escalate further.
My hope is this is the end.
But Iran's supreme leader meeting the families of soldiers killed in the bombing, leaving the door open to revenge strikes. In Israel, tensions high after this suspected truck ramming attack near a military base north of Tel Aviv. Most of the victims were senior citizens, some of them pinned underneath the truck. One man in his early 70s was killed, more than 30 others injured.
It was a quiet start to the Israeli work week here when this truck came crashing in, and you can see from the damage the speed it was going.
The driver, a Palestinian man with Israeli citizenship, was shot dead at the scene, police say. While in Gaza, this video going viral. A 6-year-old girl with her little sister on her back, walking barefoot for miles after her sibling was hit by a car. Her name is Amr. Our team met her family in the tent they now call home. They were forced to flee northern Gaza by Israeli bombing and looming famine, her mother says. Little children made to grow up fast in this pitiless war.
And Israel's military today saying it has wrapped up a raid on one of the last functioning hospitals in northern Gaza. They say they found weapons inside, they captured militants, but hospital authorities are saying they also killed civilians, including the hospital director's son. Joe.
All right, Raph, thank you. Let's take a look now at what to expect this week with your morning news. Now, weather meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us with the details. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Great to see you. And it all depends on where you are, because we're seeing very different weather across the country. Some of us need the fleece this morning. Some of us need the shorts by this afternoon. And then some of us will need snow boots because we are looking at feet of snow in some spots. So this is what it looks like today. Cool and dry throughout New England. We're going to see temperatures only in the 40s here. Northeast, mid-Atlantic will be cool as well. Very fall-like with temperatures in the 60s, but will be dry. Once again, the southeast dry as well. Record warmth within the middle of the country. We have that jet stream so far to the north that's allowing really warm air and still not only today, tomorrow, but throughout most of the week. And we're going to be chasing records once again. And then back to the west, we are looking at another storm system moving onshore. We're going to see several of these this week. So where you see the green, that's where you're looking at the rain. And we're also looking at the chance for some snow, not only today, but into Tuesday and also Wednesday. This is Wednesday. Notice another storm system moving into the Pacific Northwest, bringing some rain and snow. That's that mountain snow. Rockies snow. That's where we're going to see feet of snow in some spots. And a cold front stretching from portions of the Great Lakes, parts of the northern plains, the upper Midwest, into this central and southern plains. And some of it could be heavy where we're looking at parts of the Midwest into the central plains. Well above normal. The warmth that's in the middle of the country today will move on east over the next several days. So by Wednesday, we are looking at temperatures back into the 70s. And by Halloween, we're going to be near 80 degrees in many major cities along I-95 in the northeast. So on Friday, still warm throughout the northeast, also New England, temperatures in the 50s, 60s, mid-Atlantic into the 70s, soggy in parts of the south central states. We're going to be dry in the south, the central parts of the country, and also the northern parts of Midwest looking good as well, staying active on Friday throughout Pacific Northwest into the Intermountain West. We are starting out chilly. You need the fleece, certainly this morning in some spots, the northeast and also the mid-Atlantic, New England. 21 million people impacted by freeze alerts. We have freeze warnings. That is in the hot pink color. So places like Philadelphia, D.C., Richmond starting out very chilly this morning. And we're looking at that big time warm up throughout the middle of the country. Temperatures soaring into the 80s and 90s. This is 30 degrees above normal in some spots. And again, chasing records in so many places with November just around the corner. Tomorrow, same story. We're going to see that warmth kind of head into the Great Lakes, parts of the upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley. So now we're looking at places like Chicago, 81 degrees. The record there is 78. And 78 degrees in Cleveland, 81 in Lexington. So by Halloween in New York City, we are looking at temperatures in the 70s, near close to 80 degrees. In some spots, Philadelphia could see 80 degrees.
That's unreal. I still remember in Minnesota a blizzard on Halloween.
I know, right? So... right. You didn't know what to wear.
Right. Shorts.
No, right.
Make an outfit with shorts. All right. Michelle, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up, there are millions of videos on TikTok examining how to best break up with a friend. But some experts say app advice may not be the answer. We're going to explain why just ahead. But first, debating the death penalty. Attorneys for the man accused of murdering 4 Idaho college students want it off the table. Why they say it violates his constitutional rights. Next. Welcome back. Lawyers for Brian Kohberger, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students, are making new attempts to try and get the death penalty removed as an option for punishment if he's convicted. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has more on those new efforts.
Good morning, guys. This trial is still a year away, but what form of punishment Brian Kohberger would face if convicted, now a major point of contention. All as the victim's family are left yet again waiting for answers.
This is State v. Kohberger.
Bryan Kohberger's legal team doubling down now on efforts to keep the death penalty off the table.
I understand the stakes in this case are as high as they can possibly be.
Kohberger is charged with the murder of 4 University of Idaho students, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Madison Mogan, who were stabbed to death in their off-campus home in November of 2022. A previous judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf, but the case has been slow-moving with delays and a recent change of venue.
Your Honor, Bryan is innocent.
Kohberger's lawyers now arguing the methods of capital punishment in Idaho, lethal injection and a firing squad, would violate his constitutional right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment, writing in part in recent court papers that, quote, the evolving standards of society and the unusualness of the death penalty have changed.
This is really a cultural attack, an attempt to change or evaluate societal norms within the legal system, ultimately headed to the United States Supreme Court to ask for an entire review.
State prosecutors pushing back, citing long-established legal precedents supporting the death penalty and objecting to the defense team's effort to offer experts at next week's hearing on capital punishment, including Barbara Wolf, a forensic pathologist who worked on O.J. Simpson's defense.
I think the defense has got a very tough factual case to argue that this is a circumstance where the death penalty should not apply because this is a common garden variety, everyday murder, whatever that is. That's a pretty tough case.
Both the prosecution and the defense side expected to be back in court next week, hashing this all out in front of that new judge. Back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you so much. International headlines now. A top humanitarian official sounding the alarm on a devastating new wave of mass killings in Sudan. NBC's Matt Bodner has that and more world headlines. Matt, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Let's begin in Sudan, where the United Nations is raising the alarm on a new wave of mass killings by the paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces. Local activists say that at least 124 civilians have been killed by RSF shelling in the past week. This latest wave of conflict in Sudan sparked in April of last year when the RSF had a falling out with military leadership. The two groups had actually joined forces for a coup back in 2021, and they started fighting each other shortly after. Moving along now to Japan, where a dramatic turn of events in a snap election has rattled the decades-long supermajority of Japan's Liberal Democratic Party. Since 1955, the party has enjoyed single-party majority almost constantly, but a series of corruption scandals last year saw the party's hold over Japanese politics severely curtailed in this weekend's election. The party will now need to form a coalition with its opponents, and that is a significant shakeup in Japanese politics. And we will wrap up this hour in Pompeii, where archaeologists have uncovered an extraordinarily small home in the famous ruins of that ancient city. On top of its unusually small size, the discovery is notable for the elaborate frescoes found largely intact on the interior walls. Scholars studying the site say that it may provide new insights into changes that were taking place in Roman society when Pompeii was buried in 79 AD. Joe?
Cool discovery. All right, Matt, thank you so much. Coming up for the first time since his tragic passing, the family of Matthew Perry is opening up about his death. What they told our Savannah Guthrie as they mark a heartbreaking anniversary. Next. Welcome back. It is hard to believe it has been 1 year since beloved friend star Matthew Perry died from a ketamine overdose. Now his family in Canada is opening up about it for the first time. In an exclusive new interview with NBC News, they spoke with our Savannah Guthrie about Perry's struggles behind the scenes and a new foundation they've created in his name.
He does seem like that light up the room personality.
Oh, gosh, yeah. It's something you're born with or you're not born with. And he was certainly born with it in spades.
But it must be said, I think, that he was also very lonely in his soul.
The sort of exterior that people know about hid an insecure, often very sad guy.
When I dance, I look like this.
To millions around the world, Matthew Perry was a friend. The lovable Chandler Bing.
I'm not great at the advice. Can I interest you in a sarcastic comment?
But to his mom, Suzanne, stepfather, Keith, and sisters, Caitlin, Emily, and Madeline Morrison, he was Manu, still that boy from Ottawa, whose favorite audience was his family.
It was always like a jubilant thing when he would come over.
But their laughter was often coupled with heartache as they watched Matthew battle addiction, a decades-long struggle he opened up about in his 2022 memoir.
I was spending most of my time figuring out how to get 55 Vicodin a day.
I'm a very lucky woman, but there was one glitch, there was one problem that I couldn't conquer it. I couldn't help him.
Matthew's family is now looking to help others struggling, launching the Matthew Perry Foundation of Canada.
If it doesn't stop, we're going to lose so many million people.
Caitlin is the executive director.
Even when he was struggling in dark times, we were always proud of him. We were always proud of the fact that he kept fighting and that he made it a big focus of his life to help other people.
It's clearly the work of your heart and for him.
But what he taught the world is that no amount of money will cure an addict. It needs something else, and that's what we're trying to do.
Suzanne, you wrote that you miss him with every breath that you take.
I do. But the one thing I have to learn very hard to do, and that's one of the reasons why I want to support Katie however I can, is you've got to stop blaming yourself because it tears you up.
It was 1 year ago when Suzanne and Keith got the call no parent wants to receive.
Somebody called Suzanne, and he just said, Matthew's dead.
Matthew's dead. Your son is dead.
Before his death, Matthew had been receiving ketamine infusions, a treatment for anxiety and depression that authorities say turned into an addiction.
He went through a period, interestingly enough, just before he died, when he was showing me one of his new houses. He came up to me and he said, I love you so much, and I'm so happy to be with you now. And it was almost as though it was a premonition or something. I didn't think about it at the time, but I thought, how long has it been since we've had a conversation like that? It's been years.
Yeah. You got to have that moment of
I think
healing.
There was an inevitability to what was going to happen next to him. Mm-hmm. And he felt it very strongly. But he said, I'm not frightened anymore. Mm-hmm. And it worried me.
Did you think there was some knowing?
I think it was this new medication that he was on.
Yeah, we didn't know how much of it he was taking.
When he passed, did you think he's sober? He's still on his path?
It appeared to us as if he was. Not to you? It certainly seemed like it to me, that he was, though he had been treated with ketamine, that it hadn't turned into something that he couldn't control. Although, he was a guy who would make decisions. I can handle this, I can do this, I can tell you what's right. I know the whole system inside and out. I know what the drug will do to me. And so there was that worry that, what's he really doing?
He had done the book tour, and he seemed to be confidently on the other side.
I don't even know if in his mind he had relapsed.
That's interesting.
I don't think he did.
He didn't.
5 people have been charged in connection with Matthew's death. 3 have pleaded guilty, 2 others not guilty, and will face trial next year.
What do you think about the fact that there has been some accountability there?
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
What I'm hoping, and I think the agencies that got involved in this are hoping, that people who have put themselves in the business of supplying people with the drugs that'll kill them, that they are now on notice. It doesn't matter what your professional credentials are, you're going down, baby.
He wrote about having a couple of pretty profound experiences with God. I wonder if you ever let yourself imagine that maybe that's the place or the company he's in now.
I don't think there's a single person in this room who doesn't talk to him, and we stopped and saw the most beautiful sky you've ever seen in your life.
We saw the Northern Lights last night.
The Northern Lights. I mean, you can feel divinity in that moment.
yet other moments a heartbreaking reminder of their loss.
Even now, something funny I'll see something funny or something ridiculous on the news or whatever it is. I go to call him. I have more freedom of a relationship with him now than I ever did. And then it hits me so hard that he's not there.
You go to the cemetery once in a while, and she'll sit there and have a chat with him for a while.
What do you miss most about him, Madeleine?
Everything. Our little jokes that we had, his give me a squeeze kind of. Yeah. He was just always there.
What about you, Emily?
What do I miss?
Yeah.
I mean, my brother. He was... Sorry.
It's okay.
He was grumpy all the time, but he was funny all the time, and when the people that he loved succeeded, or they were scared, he would do anything for you. Really, all he ever wanted was to love and to be loved. He struggled so much to feel peace. And I think he got to a place where he did.
Is there anything that gives you comfort now? Not that grief ever goes away, because it just doesn't.
I don't think grief ever goes away.
No.
I have found a huge amount of meaning in thinking about the fact that this isn't our tragedy. This happens to people every day.
Nothing special about us, except for the fact that we had an extremely remarkable and famous family member who went through it. And people notice, and people come up to us all the time and say, sorry for your loss. Well, millions of people have had that loss, and we're very aware of that. And that this is not about us. It's about those millions of people. This is a world, it's a hurting world, and it needs some help.
Our thanks to Savannah for that interview. For more information on the Matthew Perry Foundation of Canada, you can head to today.com. Coming up tomorrow, Savannah will have more of her conversation with some of his closest friends who actually inspired a key part of the Chandler Bing character. That'll be tomorrow morning on Today. Coming up, AI is set to get the Apple treatment. What the tech giant is saying about its new Apple Intelligence and what you can expect ahead of the rollout. Tech giant Apple is widely expected to unveil its answer to ChatGPT today. The company says its new generative AI system, which in this case stands for Apple Intelligence, will be a key part of all its operating systems. Apple says the new tech has the ability to offer a highly personalized experience that will simplify daily tasks. It also includes the biggest upgrade to Siri since the voice assistant was announced more than a decade ago. Only a small number of the features, though, are rolling out at first. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung is here to tell us about what we can expect. So again, this is step one of the rollout. What are some of the coolest new features we're expecting, and then what do we think we'll see maybe a little further down the line?
And this is a software update. And if we rewind to when Apple announced their iPhone 16s back, a few months ago, what we were talking about then was, okay, Apple has this brand new shiny phone, but it wasn't going to get these AI features until Apple pushed out this software update, which they say is coming this week. But let me unveil kind of like what's actually part of this software update. So there's going to be small things on the margins that are going to use AI, like writing tools for your emails. So as you write something out, if Apple thinks that maybe it's a little bit too long and rambling, it'll say, hey, here's a way to maybe succinctly summarize this email into sentences. There's also the cleanup images function, which you can use to, let's say, for example, take a person that might have photobombed your photo. You can use that tool to edit out. Okay. And then lastly, text summaries. This doesn't seem like a big one, but it is pretty notable if you have, let's say, 10 or 15 messages come in, it'll say in your notifications, hey, here's a summary of what those 10 to 15 messages say.
So with ChatGPT, which we've all kind of grown accustomed to, you just go online, any sort of web browser or on your phone or whatever, and type it in. This is different because this is integrated into the actual hardware, the phone that you have. So talk about who can actually use Apple AI.
Yeah, well, I mean, for what it's worth, we have to remember that Apple is pushing out this update, but older iPhones, like, for example, I think your iPhone 7, Joe, you're not probably going to get this.
Plus.
Sorry about that. No disrespect. This will only be pushed to iPhone 15 Pros that were released last year, in addition to the brand new iPhone 16 models that were just unveiled a few weeks ago. So those are the only phones that are going to be getting these features. But again, as you mentioned, this is a big deal for those that have been saying, all right, look, I've been hearing about Google, I've been hearing about all these other companies unveiling AI. Where's Apple on this? Again, they're not doing anything revolutionary with this right now. Things like Genmojis, by the way, we talked about this when Apple first unveiled Apple Intelligence earlier in the year. This is where you could just type something in and say, I want to send an emoji of a dinosaur on a skateboard. That's not coming as part of this. It's only going to come later on. It's likely going to get pushed somewhere sometime next year.
Do we have an idea of how Apple Intelligence compares right now with a ChatGPT or with Google's Gemini? And is there a feeling this is actually, especially with the holidays coming, going to lead to a boost in people actually buying phones and products from Apple?
Yeah, well, in interviews, Apple executives have said that they're not trying to be as ambitious as, say, Google or ChatGPT. They want to make sure that they get the privacy on this right, because if you imagine, right, if you're asking Apple to, let's say, for example, even do something as simple as succinctly summarize your emails, well, it's looking at all of your emails. How do you make sure that that type of content isn't being uploaded or sold to anywhere? Apple's saying that they're trying to make sure that it's safe, that it's secure, and that hackers aren't going to be able to access this. They've actually offered a $1 million bounty in the development process to anyone that can actually successfully hack their software, so that they're basically saying, all right, report it to us, that way you don't actually do it outside of a controlled environment. But they're taking this very seriously, which is the reason why they're going a little bit more slowly.
Wow, that's fascinating. $1 million. All right. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. This morning, Delta Airlines is filing a lawsuit against CrowdStrike over that global IT outage that took the world by storm. CNBC's Savannah Henao has that and some other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yeah, so CrowdStrike being sued by Delta Airlines after the global tech outage in July caused mass flight cancellations, disrupted more than 1 million passengers, and cost the airline more than $500 million. Delta's lawsuit calls the faulty software update from CrowdStrike catastrophic. CrowdStrike has previously rejected Delta's criticism and suggests it has minimal liability. Meanwhile, Google could be close to unveiling an AI agent that can operate a web browser. The information reports Google is working on a computer-using agent codenamed Project Jarvis, and it could be ready to preview as soon as December. Jarvis responds to a person's commands by capturing screenshots from their computer and interpreting that before taking actions such as clicking on a button or typing into a text field. Jarvis would be able to assist with common tasks like research, shopping, and booking flights. And the New York City subway system celebrating its 120th birthday with a blast from the past. Passengers were able to take 2 vintage train rides this weekend on century-old LOV subway cars. Now, they offered a glimpse of the original Old City Hall station and ended at the Brooklyn Bridge. The event is part of a larger celebration with a new exhibit at the New York Transit Museum. And if you missed the ride, there's another chance on November 16th, Joe.
That is cool. A good idea. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a train that is about 120 years old.
I think a lot of people agree with that.
All right, Savannah, thank you so much.
You got it.
This morning, we're taking a closer look at friendships and, in particular, what to do when they're no longer working out. There are millions of posts on TikTok about how to break up with a friend or how to process the emotional impact of ending those relationships. But some experts say we don't need to break up with our new friends. Maybe you just need to make new ones. Jeffrey Hall is professor of communication studies at the University of Kansas and joins us now to talk more about this. Good to have you with us. I mean, let's start with some of the most common causes that can lead to friend breakups. What are some of the situations you hear about most?
Well, the vast majority of friends don't actually break up. So friends usually kind of fade away. When it comes to a point where they actually break up, there's usually some sort of disagreement or conflict. This might be a disagreement about values, a disagreement about how friends should treat one another, or it might be something more serious, like a betrayal of confidence or some sort of lack of support that a friend is not offering when you really need it.
So I know you say we all have a friend wish list, qualities or expectations we need from the people we're closest to. It can be broken down, you say, into 6 categories. So quickly whip through those categories for us, and how do they affect our relationships?
That's right. So friendships are very idiosyncratic. They're developed by individuals, kind of like how they go over time. However, there's something that underlies all of them. There's genuine positive regard, which says, I like you as a person. I prefer you over other people. Self-disclosure and mutual self-disclosure, meaning I listen to you and you listen to me. Instrumental aid, which is essentially you'll come to my aid when I need it, or give me a hand moving, or something I need help with. Similarity is this assumption that we see things eye to eye, that we share similar attitudes and values. We have a similar background or something that really draws us together in that way. Enjoyment really is we have a good time with our friends. We expect them to be someone who we enjoy spending time with. And the last one is this kind of peculiar category, which is agency, is that we kind of like to have friends who are well-connected or friends who actually have opportunities for jobs or some sort of access to resources.
That last one is a complicated one. All right, so let's get to this headline here. Should you fire your friends? Instead of ending friendships if we feel our friends are falling short or we're having some sort of conflict, what is it people should do?
That's a great question. So one of the things that's very difficult about this is people want to sort of draw attention to the thing that upsets them. They want to resolve it in some way. But I'm kind of recommending in the article that I worked on with in the Atlantic that we should actually consider the possibility of just creating some distance, letting go of those issues that we disagree about. We should forgive our friends and remember that everybody makes mistakes. I mean, after all, what really makes a good friendship is someone who is able to see you as a person who deserves that kind of forgiveness, deserves a second chance if you said something wrong or you just weren't there. And so rather than kind of bringing attention to the source of the conflict, it actually might be better to sort of make some space and create new friends or spend time with other friends. We don't need to bring these conflicts to a head with our friends, because in doing so, we actually, rather than resolving it, we may end the friendship altogether.
And thanks for bringing up the Atlantic, because that's where I first read about this, and we decided to do this segment. Is there a scenario where you do need to do this? The best thing to do is to simply cut someone out of your life and actually have that difficult conversation.
I think there's no question that there are certain things that friends can lead us to do that we need to be very cautious of continuing that relationship. They may make our worst characteristics worse, right? So this may be a situation where they lead us down paths towards, substance abuse or behaving in ways which we know are not good for us, putting ourselves in dangerous situations. And we need to say, I need to cut that part of my life out. Another source is someone when friends has done a very serious betrayal. So something that has been so wounding, so hurtful that we need to let go of that relationship. But typically we know that those things have happened. The friend knows that they're happening, and they really sort of require the kind of conflict I'm talking about. The sort of forgiveness that I'm encouraging everyone to consider are things where a friend's just, not listening as well as they might, or a friend just isn't returning your texts as fast as you might like to have them return them, or it's just unequal in some way. In this case, I really think we should lean into the possibility of forgiving our friends and creating some space.
We could all use a little more of that. All right, Jeffrey Hall, great conversation. Thank you for joining us this morning. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.